The edge of survival. The wind had teeth. That was the first thing Kira Thane learned about Erebos. It didn't just blow, it bit through thermal suit fabric, gnawed at exposed skin, and stripped away what little warmth the dying sun provided. The second thing she learned was that sound traveled differently here. Screams lasted longer, echoing off crystalline ice formations until they became something else entirely, something hollow and hopeless that matched the landscape. Tonight, Kira was the one screaming. The pain was absolute. Her leg had been crushed beneath the mechanical jaws of a settler trap, a barbaric device from the planet's early colonization attempts when predators still roamed the ice fields. The metal teeth had pierced through her calf muscle, shattering bone and shredding tissue. Blood froze almost instantly where it pooled, creating ruby crystals that caught the last light of the setting sun. She'd been careless. 3 weeks of solitary survival had dulled her caution. 3 weeks since the transport shuttle had dumped her on this frozen wasteland, her only crime being defiance against the Gene-Tech Council's breeding directives. Now she would die here, trapped and alone, her blood feeding ice formations that would outlast her memory. Kira clawed at the ground, trying to drag herself free, but the trap was anchored deep in permafrost. Each movement sent fresh waves of agony through her body. Her vision blurred with tears that froze on her lashes. The sky above was darkening from pale gray to the deep indigo that preceded Erebos' endless night. "Please," she whispered, not to anyone in particular. The word crystallized in the air before her lips. Then she heard it, the crunch of boots on snow. Heavy, deliberate footsteps approaching from behind. Kira's heart seized. The hunters. They'd finally tracked her down. They would finish what the trap had started. "Easy now," a male voice called out. Rough, but not cruel. "Don't move. That thing's got redundant clamps." Kira twisted her head, trying to see her would-be executioner. A tall figure stood silhouetted against the dying light, wrapped in a thermal parka that had seen better decades. His face was hidden behind thermal goggles and a breathing mask, but his body language wasn't that of a predator. He moved slowly, hands visible and empty. "Who are you?" Kira managed through clenched teeth. "Someone who knows better than to leave a person in a trap," he replied, kneeling beside the device. "This is old Corp Tech hardware. Nasty stuff." He pulled off one glove and ran his bare fingers along the mechanism's housing, seemingly immune to the killing cold. "Pressure sensors here, and here. Got to release them simultaneously, or what?" Kira's voice was barely audible. "Let's not find out." He reached into his pack and withdrew 2 thin metal rods. "When I say, now, you pull back. Fast as you can. Understand?" She nodded, bracing herself. 3, 2, 1, now. Metal scraped against metal. Kira jerked backward with what little strength remained. The trap's jaws released with a pneumatic hiss, spraying fresh blood across pristine snow. She collapsed, gasping, her leg a mass of torn flesh and exposed bone. "Don't look at it," the stranger commanded, already working to stem the bleeding with thermal bandages from his kit. "Focus on breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth." "Why?" Kira struggled to form words as shock set in. "Why help me?" "Because you're human," he said simply, as if that explained everything. He worked quickly, applying synth-skin patches and injecting local anesthetics. When he finished, he lifted her with surprising gentleness, cradling her against his chest. The last thing Kira saw before consciousness fled was a sky full of strange stars, and the last thing she felt was the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek. She woke to warmth, genuine warmth, not the false heat of dying nerve endings. The room smelled of recycled air and synthetic protein broth. Her leg throbbed dully beneath clean dressings, elevated on a polymer cushion. The stranger's shelter was spartanly furnished but meticulously maintained, a single bunk, a compact medical bay, and a wall of monitoring equipment casting green light across gray metal surfaces. The man sat at a small desk, his back to her, working on some mechanical component. Without his outer gear, she could see he was older than she'd thought, late 40s perhaps, with silver threading through dark hair and scars marking weathered skin. His movements were precise, economical, speaking of military training or something similar. "You've been out for 18 hours, he said without turning. "Fever broke around dawn." "Good sign." "Where?" Kira's throat was raw. "My research outpost. Only permanent structure in this grid sector." He swiveled his chair to face her. His eyes were gunmetal gray, steady and assessing. "I'm Marcus Raven. Former systems engineer, Colonial Defense Corps. Currently, retired." "Kira Thane," she whispered. "Former nothing. Currently freezing to death on a prison planet." "Not anymore." Marcus crossed to the medical bay and checked her vitals on a handheld scanner. "The leg will heal. Might have a limp, but you'll walk again." "Why save me?" He paused, considering the question. "Because leaving you wasn't an option I could live with." Marcus heated a packet of nutrient broth and helped her drink, supporting her head with one hand. The liquid tasted like salted cardboard, but it warmed her from within. As she sipped, she studied his face more closely. There was kindness there, buried beneath layers of isolation and regret. "How long have you been here?" she asked. 6 years. Came to study atmospheric composition. Stayed because. He shrugged. Because sometimes you need distance from your failures. Kira understood that need all too well. "What happened?" "Operation Blackwater. Training exercise gone wrong. Lost my entire squad to faulty NAV data. Command blamed protocol breach. I blamed myself." His voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands trembled slightly as he set aside the empty broth packet. Erebos seemed like appropriate penance. "I didn't choose my exile," Kira said softly. "The Gene Tech Council chose it for me." Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't press for details. Instead, he adjusted her foreline and checked the wound dressing. "You'll need to stay off that leg for at least a week. After that, physical therapy. I have supplies for 6 months, maybe more if we ration carefully." Unless you prefer to brave the ice alone once you're healed." Kira looked at the frost-covered windows, at the endless white beyond. "No. Thank you." He nodded, then returned to his workbench. They sat in companionable silence as she drifted in and out of consciousness, her body focusing its energy on healing. When she woke again, it was to the sound of Marcus programming security protocols into his perimeter defense grid. "Expecting trouble?" she asked. "Always," he replied. "But especially now. That trap wasn't random placement. Someone's been hunting in my sector." "They're hunting me," Kira admitted. "Council retrievers. Sent to confirm my death or bring you back for reconditioning." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I've heard stories. They won't stop. Not until they have proof. Then we make sure they never find you." He turned to face her fully. "I've survived 6 years here by being invisible. We can do it together." Kira felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest, hope, perhaps, or the first stirrings of trust. Why take that risk for a stranger? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old wounds. "Because once, I stood by and watched people die when I could have saved them. I won't make that mistake again." Outside, the wind howled its eternal song. But inside Marcus Raven's shelter, 2 damaged souls began the delicate process of healing, not just their bodies, but the fractured pieces of their humanity that exile had tried to strip away. The first part of their story was survival. What came next would be something more. Bonds forged in snow. The first week passed in a routine of pain management and careful movement. Kira's body fought infection while Marcus maintained an unspoken vigil, tracking her temperature, changing bandages, and administering antibiotics with methodical precision. Each morning, he would check his perimeter sensors before making her breakfast, usually reconstituted protein cubes that tasted like nothing but provided essential nutrients. By the 8th day, Kira could sit up without assistance. The shelter had become familiar, its compact efficiency, the constant hum of air recyclers, the way frost patterns formed and reformed on the reinforced windows. She'd memorized the rhythm of Marcus's days, early morning equipment checks, afternoon data analysis, evening repairs of various systems. He moved through tasks with military discipline, but there was gentleness in how he helped her, a carefulness that spoke of past trauma. "Tell me about them," Marcus said one evening as he cleaned her wound. The flesh had begun to knit, leaving angry red scars that would fade to silver with time. "The council. What they want from you." Kira tensed, then forced herself to relax. She owed him this truth at least. The Gene Tech Council controls our population through selective breeding. Every citizen is evaluated, catalogued, assigned a genetic compatibility score. When you reach maturity, they present you with approved matches. And you refused. I fell in love with someone outside my approved parameters. Kira's voice grew distant. Jana was a theoretical physicist, brilliant but born to labor caste parents. The council deemed her genetics suboptimal for my breeding profile. Marcus's hands stilled on the bandage. They separated you. They erased her. Complete identity wipe, reassignment to an outer colony. I tried to find her, hacked into restricted databases. That's when they declared me a genetic deviant and sentenced me to rehabilitation through isolation. Kira laughed bitterly. Erebos was meant to break me or kill me. They didn't expect someone like you. Someone foolish enough to play hero. Marcus resumed his work, applying fresh dressings with practiced efficiency. Someone human enough to care. He didn't respond immediately, focusing on securing the bandage. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. After Blackwater, I stopped letting myself care. Safer that way. No attachments, no failures, no ghosts. But you saved me. Couldn't let you die in that trap. Not when I could do something about it. He met her eyes, and for the first time, Kira saw the depth of guilt he carried. My squad trusted me to keep them safe. I failed them. I've been failing them every day since by hiding here. Surviving isn't failing, Kira said softly. Surviving isn't living either. They sat in silence as the truth of his words settled between them. Outside, aurora lights danced across the sky, casting ethereal green shadows through the shelter's windows. 3 weeks into her recovery, Kira took her first steps. Marcus had fashioned a crutch from salvaged materials, and she leaned heavily on it as she made a circuit of the shelter. Her leg screamed in protest, but she pushed through the pain, determined to rebuild her strength. Slowly, Marcus cautioned, hovering nearby. The bone's still healing. I need to be ready, she insisted through gritted teeth. They'll come eventually. Let them come. My security grid will give us warning. But that night, the first alert sounded. Marcus was at the console instantly, pulling up sensor data. Kira dragged herself to his side, balancing on her good leg. The display showed 2 heat signatures moving across the eastern approach, humanoid forms maintaining a search pattern. Retrievers, Kira whispered. They've found me. They found something, Marcus corrected. Doesn't mean they know you're here. He began typing rapidly. I'm activating the decoy beacon, sending them toward the abandoned mining complex. The heat signatures paused, then redirected toward the false signal. Marcus exhaled slowly. Bought us time, but not much. They'll realize it's a trick eventually. We should run. Where? This shelter's the only thing keeping us alive within 100 kilometers. Marcus turned to face her. We make our stand here. Together. The next morning, Marcus began fortifying their position. He welded additional plates to the entrance, installed redundant power cells, and distributed weapons throughout the shelter, not just energy weapons, but improvised explosives and chemical deterrents. "You're preparing for war," Kira observed, watching him work. "I'm preparing for survival." "Different thing entirely." He handed her a pulse pistol. "Ever fire one of these?" "No." "Time to learn." They spent hours practicing with disabled weapons, Marcus teaching her grip, stance, and trigger discipline. His instructions were calm but intense, drawing from years of combat experience. Kira absorbed everything, driven by the knowledge that their lives would soon depend on these skills. As they trained, something shifted between them. The careful distance Marcus maintained began to erode, replaced by a partnership born of necessity and growing trust. They shared meals, swapped stories of their former lives, and slowly built something that resembled normalcy in their abnormal circumstances. One night, as they monitored the perimeter sensors, Kira asked, "Why did you really come to Erebos?" Marcus was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "After Blackwater, I couldn't face another sunrise on a civilized world. Every morning reminded me of the ones my squad would never see. Here, the sun barely rises at all. Seemed fitting. And now? Now I have something worth protecting again." He looked at her, and Kira saw something in his eyes that went beyond mere duty. The retrievers returned 3 days later, this time with scanning equipment that cut through Marcus's decoys. They established a perimeter around the shelter, methodically searching for entry points. "They know we're here," Kira said, checking her weapon for the 100th time. "They suspect," Marcus corrected. "Haven't confirmed anything yet." He pulled up a tactical display. 2 operatives, standard council gear. "They'll try negotiation first, then force." As if on cue, an amplified voice echoed across the ice. "Kira Thane. By order of the Gene Tech Council, you are commanded to surrender for rehabilitation. Compliance will result in lenient treatment." "Lenient treatment," Kira scoffed. "They mean chemical reconditioning and memory wipes." Marcus keyed his external comm, "This is private property. Leave immediately or face defensive measures." "Marcus Raven," the voice replied, now tinged with interest. "Former Lieutenant Commander, Colonial Defense Corps. Your presence here is unexpected. Stand down and you won't be implicated in harboring a genetic criminal." "She's not a criminal," Marcus growled. "She's a human being who made a choice." "Irrelevant. The Council's authority is absolute." Kira placed a hand on Marcus's arm. "Don't throw your life away for me." He covered her hand with his own. "I'm not throwing anything away. For the first time in 6 years, I'm choosing to live." Their eyes met, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but the recognition of kindred spirits who had found each other in the wasteland. Marcus turned back to the comm, "You have 30 seconds to withdraw." "So be it." The first assault came minutes later. Energy weapons scorched the reinforced walls as the retrievers probed for weaknesses. Marcus responded with targeted EMP bursts, disrupting their equipment while Kira manned the internal defenses. "They'll breach eventually," Marcus said during a lull. "When they do, stay behind me." "Like hell," Kira retorted, checking her ammunition. "We do this together." Together. The word resonated in the small shelter, carrying promises neither had dared to voice. Outside, the retrievers regrouped for another assault. Inside, 2 broken souls prepared to fight not just for survival, but for the right to choose their own path. The battle for their future had begun. Breaking chains. The shelter shook as another explosion rocked its foundations. Kira braced herself against the wall, her injured leg protesting the sudden movement. Through the reinforced window, she could see one of the retrievers setting up a plasma cutter, military grade, designed to slice through starship hulls. "They're bringing out heavy equipment," she reported, keeping her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Marcus nodded grimly, his fingers flying over the control panel. "Activating the external defense grid. It'll buy us minutes, not hours." A high-pitched whine filled the air as the shelter's automated turrets emerged from hidden compartments. Energy bolts lit up the night, forcing the retrievers to take cover behind ice formations. But Kira knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The Council didn't send retrievers to fail. "Marcus," she said quietly. "There's something you should know." He glanced at her, reading the seriousness in her expression. "Tell me." "The Council doesn't just want me back for rehabilitation. I'm carrying encrypted data, evidence of their illegal experiments, genetic manipulation programs that violate every interplanetary treaty. That's the real reason they've hunted me this far." Marcus's eyes widened. "You're a whistleblower." "I was trying to be. Jana helped me steal the files before they took her." Kira touched the small implant behind her ear. "It's all stored here, waiting for the right moment to transmit." Before Marcus could respond, their console erupted with warnings. The retrievers had breached the outer perimeter, disabling 2 turrets with precision shots. The plasma cutter's beam began carving through the shelter's main door, metal glowing white-hot under its assault. "We need a new plan," Marcus said, moving to a hidden panel in the floor. He pulled out 2 thermal suits and an emergency beacon. "There's an old research station 12 kilometers northeast. Abandoned, but it has a communication array that might still work. You want to run into that storm?" Kira gestured toward the window where ice particles swirled in hurricane-force winds. "I want to live. And I want that data to see daylight." He helped her into the thermal suit, his movements urgent but gentle. "The storm will cover our escape. They'll expect us to stay and fight." As if to punctuate his words, the plasma cutter broke through the door. Smoke and superheated air rushed in. Marcus grabbed their emergency supplies while Kira initiated the shelter's self-destruct sequence, a failsafe he'd installed years ago. "Ready?" he asked, supporting her weight as they moved toward the emergency exit. "No," she admitted. "But let's go anyway." They slipped out into the blizzard as the retrievers stormed the shelter. The wind hit like a physical wall, visibility reduced to mere meters. Marcus led the way, his navigation implant guiding them through the white void. Behind them, a massive explosion lit up the night as the shelter's power core overloaded, taking the retriever's equipment with it. The journey was brutal. Each step was a battle against wind and cold, Kira's injured leg screaming with every movement. Ice formed on their visors, breathing became labored, and the temperature readouts on their suits showed dangerous levels. But Marcus never let go of her hand, pulling her forward when she faltered. Hours passed in a haze of white and pain. Just when Kira thought she couldn't take another step, the outline of the research station materialized through the storm, a squat, dome-shaped structure half buried in snow. "Almost there," Marcus shouted over the wind. "The entrance is." His words cut off as an energy bolt struck the ground beside them. The retrievers had survived the explosion and tracked them through the storm. Marcus spun, returning fire while pushing Kira toward the station's airlock. "Get inside. Find the comm array," he ordered, laying down covering fire. "Not without you. I'll be right behind you. Go." Kira hesitated, then limped toward the airlock. The security system was dead, but manual override still functioned. She cranked the heavy wheel, muscles straining, until the door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Inside, emergency lights flickered to life, revealing a dusty control room filled with outdated equipment. Kira located the communication terminal and began the power-up sequence, her fingers flying over familiar interfaces. The data implant thrummed behind her ear, ready to upload. Gunfire echoed outside. Through the small viewport, she saw Marcus exchanging shots with both retrievers. He was outnumbered, outgunned, but fighting with desperate precision. One retriever fell, but the other advanced, forcing Marcus to retreat toward the station. Kira worked faster, bypassing security protocols and establishing an uplink to the planetary satellite network. The transfer began, progress bar crawling across the screen. Classified documents, research logs, victim testimonies, everything the Council had tried to bury. The airlock cycled. Marcus stumbled in, his suit scorched from energy fire, blood seeping from a wound in his side. He sealed the door just as the remaining retriever reached it. "Status," he gasped, sliding down the wall. "Uploading now. 60% complete." Kira rushed to his side, examining his injury. "You're hit. Had worse during training." He managed a weak smile. "Did I mention I failed my combat medical certification? Stop joking and let me help you." She applied emergency sealant to the wound, her hands steady despite everything. Outside, the retriever was attaching breaching charges to the airlock. They had minutes at most. "Kira," Marcus said, his voice strained. "Whatever happens, that data has to get out. Promise me." "We're both getting out," she insisted, but fear gnawed at her resolve. The upload reached 90%. 95. The airlock door buckled under the first explosion. "There's an emergency shuttle in the sublevel," Marcus revealed. "Pre-programmed for orbital insertion. Take it. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Someone needs to testify, to make sure Jana's sacrifice meant something." He gripped her hand. "Besides, I've spent 6 years running from my failures. Time to face them." The upload completed. Across the galaxy, news networks and government databases received the encrypted files. The truth about the Gene Tech Council's crimes began spreading like wildfire. The airlock door blew inward. The retriever entered, weapon raised, but stopped when he saw the upload confirmation on the screen. "You're too late," Kira said, standing protectively in front of Marcus. "Everyone knows." The retriever's helmet comm crackled. Even from across the room, they could hear the panicked voices, council members demanding damage control, security forces refusing illegal orders, citizens rising up against genetic tyranny. "Stand down," Marcus called out. "Your employers are about to become war criminals." For a long moment, the retriever stood frozen. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon and removed his helmet, revealing a young face marked by doubt. "They told us you were terrorists," he said quietly. "That you threatened genetic purity." "We threatened their control," Kira replied. "Nothing more." The retriever looked between them, then at the screen showing the upload's propagation. Finally, he stepped back. "The Council's shuttles are grounded. Security forces are moving to arrest the leadership. You've won." Relief flooded through Kira, so intense she almost collapsed. Marcus caught her, his arm strong despite his injury. "What now?" she asked, looking up at him. "Now we heal," he said. "Both of us. And then we help build something better." 6 months later, Kira stood before the Interplanetary Court, testifying against the former council members. Marcus sat in the gallery, his presence a constant source of strength. His wound had healed, leaving only a faint scar, but the greater healing had been internal, learning to forgive himself, to live with purpose again. The council's breeding programs were dismantled. Citizens gained the right to choose their partners freely. Jana was found and freed from a labor camp, though her memories of Kira had been partially erased. After the trial, Kira and Marcus returned to Erebos, not as exiles, but as researchers documenting the planet's transformation from prison to potential colony. They worked side by side, their relationship deepening from partnership to something more profound. One evening, as aurora lights painted the sky in brilliant colors, Marcus took Kira's hand. "You saved me," he said simply. "We saved each other," she corrected. In the distance, construction crews worked on the first civilian settlement. Erebos was changing, like its two guardians who had found redemption in its frozen wastes. The wind still had teeth, but now it sang of hope rather than despair. Together, they watched the sun rise properly for the first time in years, its light breaking through the perpetual clouds. A new day had dawned, not just for them, but for a galaxy learning to see beyond genetic profiles to the human hearts beneath. The chains were broken. The future was theirs to write.